Hey, I hope you are fine. I'm here today to talk about China games market. And first, I want to introduce myself. I am Suvi Latva, and I'm Chief Business Advisor at NeoGames Finland, which is a membership-based non-profit association for the game industry, and our mission is to coordinate and support the growth of and development of the Finnish game industry and its ecosystem. Personally, I have done trade missions to China regarding games industry. I have done several reports about the China games market and also building and keeping connections between Chinese company representatives. And I think I started my Chinese investigations on 2016. And I also, because it's quite fascinating, everything in there regarding Chinese culture and history. So I have got a little bit of personal interest regarding that. I kind of want to build a connection why I'm here today talk about the games industry and why it's relevant for me to understand the history and culture, and also maybe I can give something from the China games industry perspective, what I have learned. So as you know, Mao had a goal to make a great leap at Chinese industrialization, and one of the aims was overcome Western countries in a steel production. Long history and cooperation with other global industry operators has given a tremendous amount of know-how and development and technologies widely in several areas of industries and economy. Not to mention that China's own government consistent and huge efforts towards strong progress in several areas of business and technology. And now it can be said that China has a really strong position in global business, including games industry. And still, and maybe it has always been, but especially now it's quite that the politics have a really strong impact in business in China, and games industry is not an exception in that. And here comes the Chinese game industrialization. So Chinese game companies has been imitating and learning from a lot from Western developers. And Chinese players' appetite is, however, quite different, and what do they kind of prefer is different than Western players, but there is still obviously some similarities. And today we can say that China is one of the largest games market globally. US and China accounted half of the consumer spending in games market globally. Supercell was acquired by Tencent on 2016. Supercell, I hope you know that Supercell is a Finnish game studio which has been tremendously successful, and it was owned by acquired by Japanese Kangho, SoftBank, and then later Tencent acquired from SoftBank. Now, when we are talking about the industrialization and how Chinese people or China government or as a country has been aiming to compete with the Western countries, now I think it's fair to say that Chinese game studios are ruling the game industry globally. Chinese game companies generate 39% of the PC games revenue worldwide, and 47% of the mobile games revenue worldwide. So that's a lot from the one country. Of course, there is quite a lot of people, but still, they have really successful globally. Now I would like you to think about if some other examples of Chinese industrialization, like at this century, 2000 century, maybe you can 20th century, if you can think about like what other similar success stories you could identify. there is maybe a hint in the picture. Maybe you can think based on that, or maybe something else. And now you can pause the video if you want to, or we can continue following slides. I want to talk about a little bit about the Chinese games history. It started with the internet cafes. Those were called Wangba, and first internet cafes were established already on 94. And at that time, those internet cafes were really expensive. On 2000, cafes were starting to get really popular, and almost every city has had their own internet cafe. And the popularity of the internet cafes boomed drastically on 2010 and so on, and it even became kind of its own culture and attraction. And when mobile internet came more accessible around 2010, amount of cafes decreased because people were able to play games with their mobile. And one reason why internet cafes were so popular earlier was that because computers were expensive and there were no internet connections in most of the houses. So it was quite a convenient way to play your games because you didn't need to have your own computer or internet connection. So that was the way. But when you got your mobile phones, then amount of internet cafes decreased. And COVID-19 gave the mortal strike for the internet cafes, and then there were not too many left after lockdowns. Mobile games started to get popular on the beginning of 2000, but that was the time when games were a bit different. Those were, you ordered the games with the SMS message from the operator, and those were quite simple games. There were no in-app purchases, there were no ads, there were nothing like that. But still, you to be able to play certain games, you needed to have a online connection, and that was sometimes a challenge with certain areas because internet connection was not good enough in all the tiers in China, especially in rural areas. I think you are aware, but Google was banned on 2010, and that meant that there was no, for example, Google Play, where you could buy or download your applications or games. So there started to pop up quite a lot of different kind of Android app stores. I think that at one point there was more than 200 app stores for mobile games. And game consoles were banned in China during 2000 and 2013. Then I would like to talk about game platforms. China is not an exception compared to the other countries, or in general. Mobile is first nowadays. The most popular device for playing games. Apple device market share is decreasing, and there could be some political tensions between US and China, and trade wars and everything like that. I believe that those are of course impacting also how popular Apple is there. And Google Play, as I said, is not allowed in China. Also, the reason why it's really hard to get reliable data regarding mobile games, because there is so many different app stores for Android games, for example, to be downloaded. So it's quite difficult, and Western researchers don't have access to get this data from the Chinese app stores. So it's quite difficult to estimate, but it's most likely that the And I strongly believe that mobile is definitely the biggest, most popular platform in China market. And PC is a little bit the same. It's also that global Steam, where you can download your PC games, is really, really popular in China, but it's not legally available there. So people use it via VPN. And I think that one thing what is talking about its popularity is that simplified China overtake English as the most common used language there. So it's surprising it's not legally available. But there is a legal version of Steam in China, but that doesn't have that wide offering. So that's the reason why the global Steam is a little bit more popular in Chinese market. There is still like the roots of the internet cafes, and as I said, it was a kind of cultural phenomena. It's still like esports and that kind of activities are really deep in Chinese culture or gaming culture. So PC and online games are really popular, plus esports, and even that COVID lockdowns caused quite a lot of hurdles in both of those. After the COVID days, during the COVID, they started to do hyper events, and it must be said that China is still one of the largest esport market in the world, with 400 million fans and quite an impressive revenue also. And consoles is a tricky thing. As I mentioned earlier, they were banned in China, but when something is not legally available, there is always ways to get those. So there were ways to get those, and also there were copies, and so and of course the original consoles are quite expensive. So there were different kind of shady markets for different versions of the consoles, and so there is so-called gray area in console games also in China. I think that's kind of that there are clear things in China market, and then there is this gray area, and there are rules, and then there are exceptions. That's kind of it's interesting combination of all these different kind of features, which makes it also fascinating. But yeah, it's also quite difficult to estimate the size of console markets, because there is also this gray area. And then we are coming to the regulation. I know that some people find it quite boring, but I think that I'm getting closer why I'm why I'm here today, talk about the games market for you, why it's relevant. And regulation is the kind of one of the bones of this presentation, I would say. So games regulation is a great example of the government power to impact and control what kind of content and entertainment is served for Chinese citizens. Government approval for games, it's said it means ISBN license, and any games released legally in China needs to get a government approval. And approval process is not short. It can take from 9 months to 1.5 years. And only Chinese legal entity can apply that. Therefore, we need to learn how to cooperate and how to partner with the Chinese companies, because all the foreign game companies, they need to partner up with the Chinese companies. So that's why it's important us to know how to do the business cooperation with them. To make it a little bit more confusing, as I mentioned about this not legally available global Steam, there is quite a lot of games which don't have a ISBN approval because they are not legally available there. there was on 2018 there was a shutdown, and there was no any approvals. Or any games were not approved in 9 months, and there is quite a lot of games released every day in global markets, and obviously there used to be also in China market, so it was quite a hit and hurdle also for the Chinese companies like Tencent and NetEase. They took a financial hit. Although those big companies which were already there were kind of in a happy position because there was not too much competition because there were no new games coming. So there was also other side for that. When the approval process opened again, happened that the amount of games approved, the number decreased dramatically, but also it changed so that Chinese games were more favored than foreign. So it basically 468 domestic games were getting approval on 2022, and only 45 foreign games from the whole world got approval to get published in Chinese games market. And 2020 there was another big cleaning in Chinese app stores where huge number of those unlicensed games were removed. Regulation is, as I said, it's really strong in China, and actually it's starting to be in Europe also and US, but maybe it's a bit different still in the China market, and at least more fast in the movements. So there is it's a little bit challenging to build your business when you don't know about how the regulation and rules change regarding children play time. There was coming this facial recognition of like what is the age of the actual player in that game, and playtime restrictions and spending in games and so on. We are getting like deeper and deeper this subject. How this regulation it's not impacting only in games, like that you get approved or not, but it's about the content. I think this is same in other areas of entertainment also. So let's talk about the content and communication in games. Content requirements for ISBN approval, the license what I was talking about. It's getting more interesting. Certain elements like realistic red blood, dead bodies, or skeletons are not allowed. For example, there was a PUBG, which was a really a popular game globally in Western world, and it was also published in Chinese market by Tencent, but China government took it away, and the reason for that was that the PUBG was harming socialistic core values and traditional Chinese culture and ethical norms. So Tencent tried to make changes for the game, but it was quite challenging because one of the game was about killing and fighting and dead bodies and everything, and they changed it to game for peace. But you can only imagine how much the actual product was already changed. So maybe it didn't end up to be so successful. You know that Taiwan is not allowed, as well as any politically sensitive matters. And now I'm talking about the requirements to get the ISBN approval. These are only like few examples about those. Massive multiple online games, those are also tricky thing in China, because China wants the game services servers to be inside China. And government also don't appreciate the opportunities to platforms where you can communicate without any decent censorship. And also every community meetings requires government approval, including player fan clubs and all the meetings, where you meet, you need to apply approval for that. And that was also one reason why Pokemon Go was banned in China already quite a long time ago, but it was a great example of how it cannot be worked. Animal Crossing were removed from sale in China because that was it's a kind of platform game where you can build your own content, and there was a island built from the few players, and they had their protest banners against Hong Kong situation, and that was obviously not allowed, so the game was out from the stores. Time is flying when you are having fun, but still I'm giving you one other question or something that you can think about. Which other ways or regulation or politics effects on digital entertainment or customer products in China? So you can think about it. I'm referring those requirements of ISBN approval, like how much you need to actually think about, like what kind of content you can put there, and how can you build services there, like platforms or anything. Just give a thought about that. And that's it. Thank you, Suvi. And if there is any questions regarding China's games market, you can always contact me. There is my email. You can check that there. And have a nice day. Thank you. Bye.